好的 Okay, now today November 2nd 2023, it's our 31st session reading Urantia book with Heidi. We keep reading paper 110, relation of adjusters to individual mortals. We are going to read section 5, Erroneous Concepts of Adjuster Guidance.
Sorry, Ricky, is there a passcode for Zoom? It's not letting me in with the passcodes I usually use.
369369.
It's not letting me in with that
one. Okay, let me find my phone. You might have entered the wrong.
Yeah, I tried it. Here, wait.
It's 816-841-5.
Oh, that's the meeting ID?
Yes.
Maybe I'm using the wrong. I think I might be using the wrong meeting ID.
Yeah.
Wait, let me just check. Yeah, I was using 336-369-7777.
Oh, okay.
What is it? It's 8 something. Because I think I'll say 8 something.
Yeah, let me forward to you through.
No, don't do that because I'll see it because they save them in the
816.
Yeah, I'll see it in 816. They save it in the list.
Get it?
I'm just trying to open it.
You can only open one conference app at one time.
No, actually, I see it. Okay, I can open both, but I see it. I'll rewrite it. Okay.
Well, anyway, you can be at either one because now I'm recording on both. But I can only do local recording at VOV. That's why I have a Zoom as the main room because I can share cloud recording later. But VOV has more function that its transcription is very, very good, and also it can do translated transcripts before, but now I lost that paid conference room. Okay, so I'll see. Are you on Zoom right now?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Got it. Okay. Where was I? Okay, paper 110, relation of adjusters to individual mortals. Today, section 5, Erroneous Concepts of Adjuster Guidance. 今天11月2号2023年，我们继续读第110篇思想调整者与与个体凡人的关系，第5部分关于思想调整者指导的错误概念。然后呢，有时间我们还会继续读104篇关于三位一体概念的发展。Okay, Heidi, I have introduced today's session, so now it's your ground.
Okay.
I'm going to pull up 110. So
Okay.
I said we are going to read 110 and 104. So now today's fifth section on paper 110.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. paper 110, relation of adjusters to individuals. Section 5, erroneous concepts of adjuster guidance. Do not confuse and confound the mission and influence of the adjuster with what is commonly called conscience. They are not directly related. Oh, hold on, I'm turning the page. Conscience is a human and purely psychic reaction. It is not to be despised, but it is hardly the voice of God to the soul, which indeed the adjuster would be if such a voice could be heard. Conscience rightly admonishes you to do right, but the adjuster, in addition, endeavors to tell you what truly is right. That is, when and as you are able to perceive the monitor's leading. Okay.
对 ，Yes, I have to find someone to read the Chinese. 这个在 Zoom 上的伙伴，哪个伙伴可以帮忙读一下中文的翻译？这个第110篇第5部分，哪个伙伴愿意给读一下？秘密 ，Anne， 秘密吧。你方便吗？那腾讯会议那边也可以。腾讯会议
我不方便，姐姐不太方便。
OK， 好的。哎，腾讯会议这边哪个伙伴方便给读一下这个？好的，我来调到100。哇，下一次就可以读心灵圆圈了。
关调整者指导的错误观念，将把调整者的任务和影响与通常所说的良心混淆和混杂，它们没有直接关系。良心是人类的一种纯粹的心理反应，不可轻视，但这不是神对灵魂发出的声音。如果有人能听到这种声音，那的确会是调整者发出的。良心告诫你要做正确的事，这是对的。但除此之外，调整者尽力告诉你什么才是正确的，什么才是真正正确的。那就是当你能够感知到告诫者的指引时，人的梦境体验既不协调的睡眠心智的
I think Heidi have not read the second paragraph yet. Okay.
Oh, that's okay. She can read it, and then I'll read it.
他说你可以把第2段读完。
人的梦境体验既不协调的睡眠心识的混乱和不连贯的表现，充分证明了调整者未能协调和关联影响人心识的不同因素。调整者根本无法在一世中任意的协调和同步人性和神性这2种不同类型的思维。若真能看到这样的灵魂被直接转移到宅下世界，而不需要经历死亡体验，他们有时候会这样做。
Okay, yeah, Shirley already finished the 2 paragraphs in Chinese translation.
Okay, so the first one is pretty straightforward, but I just want to say that, you know, that's very important to remember that because I think a lot of people confuse their conscience with the leading and guiding of their adjuster. They're two completely different things.
他说第1段非常重要，就是往往我们会混淆，就是像调整者的指导，还有这个良心的一个提醒告诫。
琪琪，我们这边听不到海蒂的声音呢。
Heidi， Can you? Okay, they didn't hear you well, so can you try now?
Can you hear me now?
沈丽，
可以，
哦
可以，OK, we hear you. Yeah.
It's better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So did you translate what I just said about the conscience?
Yes.
Okay, so
Uh-huh.
let me give you an example. You might have, they may say this, but I don't think I think it says it in another place in the book, but you may have been brought up a certain religion. Like, let's say, do you guys know what the Amish are? The Pennsylvania Dutch or the Amish? Have you ever heard of those people?
No. 他说我们可能都是在不同的宗教背景下长大的，问我知不知道一个叫 Amish No.
Oh, they're very religious people. It's a group of people in America who they're called the Amish, and they speak German, and then they have their own language, which is a type of German, and they're Christian, but they're really a very different type of religion, and they don't use any technology. They don't use cars. They don't use electricity. They wear very simple clothes. They make all their own things. It's a really amazing. And there's a lot of them. There's 350,000 of them.
How many?
Well, there's 350,000 now, but they have lots of kids, so there's going to be more and more of them as time goes on.
Mormon. 我知道了。Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, 他提到就是美国有个摩门教嘛，它是很特别的，很特别的，就是这么一个宗教团体。他们实际上是一个基督教的团体，但是又非常的不同。他们有他们自己的经典哈。然后他们生活方式上呢，就是尽量避免用车呀、用电呐这些现代化的东西，过的生活非常简朴，然后造他们自己的东西，然后大概有35万人吧，但是他们有很多孩子，但是呢，所以呢，就是人口也在增长。
They're a very interesting group of people. Well, I'm using them for an example because if you were Amish, your conscience would tell you not to ever step in a car, never to drive in a car, right? That wouldn't be your thought.
Mormon is hold on. I thought it's Mormon. No,
Mormons are in Utah. They're completely different.
那我说错了，这些伙伴们，我以为他说的是摩门教，他是个 Mormon， 这是另外的一个 group， 另外的一个组一个信仰群。对，他是刚才说他们说的是这个德语是另外一个信仰群，但是因为在美国信仰自由嘛，什么信仰都可以在这儿可以有生存的余地，所以这个族群我没有听说过。OK。
Have you seen pictures of them? They still drive in horses and buggies, and the men always wear hats, and they dress like very old fashioned. Have you seen any pictures of them or anything?
No.
Oh, okay. I'll have to give you some pictures. They're very nice. I mean, they're kind of a wonderful group of people, and they hardly ever get cancer because they live such a healthy lifestyle, and they grow all their own food, and they hardly ever get cancer.
对，他就说现在你看他们那个族群，他们还骑马，女人还戴帽子，因为他们就是生活方式非常健康嘛，他们基本上不得癌症，他们都是很和蔼的人。
there are this has nothing to do with the book, but I've been looking into learning a little more about Christianity, and there are so many different Christian faiths. It's amazing. You have no idea how many different Christian churches there are. Then they can be very, very different from each other.
对，他就最近读一些关于这个基督教的这个历史啊，各个帮派啊，这个关系那个这些的书，然后呢，你就是难以想象，有很多很多支派，就是基督教的支派，对他们有的时候就是各个方面非常不同。
The biggest group of Christians is the Western Catholic Church with the Pope.
最大的支派是那个西方的那个这个天主教这个大支。
And that group, I would say, they have so little in common with the Amish. They're nothing alike.
对，那这天主教跟这个 Amish 这支那真是天差地别，差别太大了。
The only thing the Amish and the Catholics have in common is that they don't believe in birth control, and they definitely don't believe in abortion, and they don't believe in birth control.
Who don't believe in birth?
Well, the Amish definitely don't, but the Catholics, the Catholic religion doesn't, but individual Catholics do. Do you know what I mean? It's not that strict, but with the Amish, they really don't.
就比如说那个 Amish 那个支派，他们坚决是不做任何的那个就是生育节育的那个措施的，更不用谈堕胎了。对，那个天主教呢，技术上他们是认可的，但是当然个人都是可以随便决定要怎么样，没有那么严格。
So let's say if you were Amish, your conscience would tell you not to do so many things because it's against their religion. You know, not to use electricity, not to use a cell phone, you know, but that's not your thought adjuster talking. That would be in other words, your conscience can be formed by your upbringing, your family, your religion, your culture, etc. That can form your conscience. That can form your idea about what is right and wrong. You know, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. What is right and wrong to do.
Yeah. 那么就是像那个在 Amish 那一分支的基督教里边，用电呐、用手机啊，大概都是良心不安的。对，因为这个良心这个东西，它是跟怎么形成的，你生长的环境啊，你的宗教啊，你从小这个父母怎么样把你养育大的这个。灌输给你的对和错的观念跟这些是有关系的，你的良心是这些形成的。
You know, in one culture, it might be okay to have 3 wives or a wife and a mistress. In another culture, it's the worst thing you could, you know, you're supposed to be completely faithful to your wife.
那有一些文化当中，你可以有3个妻子，或者是多个妻妾，然后在一些其他的文化当中，你可能一定要对一个人忠诚。
So your conscience, you know, usually it's good to listen to your conscience, because usually it's a pretty good guide, because you know, usually our culture and our religion, and you know, usually you'll do better to follow those kind of rules that you were brought up with than to not follow them. You know, so it's better to follow your conscience than not to follow your conscience. But it's doing what's right according to your conscience is not always the same as doing what's right according to your thought adjuster.
对，当然你的良心可以是一个很好的指导，照你就是你的文化宗教把你养大的方式来行事，但是思想调整者的指导跟这个完全不是一回事。
So it says in that paragraph that conscience tells you to do the right thing, but the adjuster also tries to tell you what is truly right in God's eyes and what is not right. That's it. It does this additional thing.
对，你看这个第一段最后一句说良心告诫你要做正确的事哈，但是呢，调整者告诉你什么才是真正正确的，就是说在神的眼里啊，什么才是真正正确的。
You know, your adjuster may guide you to do something that is right and is your godly path that you haven't even ever thought of doing or considered doing.
对，那有可能思想调整者会给你指一条路或者一种的这个指导呢，只是神的路，但是你可能从来都没有想到要去遵循的，要去做的。
So anyway, I'll read the next paragraph, and I know you already read it. So the next paragraph is man's dream experiences, that disordered and disconnected parade of the uncoordinated sleeping mind, present adequate proof of the failure of the adjusters to harmonize and associate the divergent factors of the mind of man. The adjusters simply cannot, in a single lifetime, arbitrarily coordinate and synchronize two such unlike and diverse types of thinking as the human and the divine. When they do, as they sometimes have, such souls are translated directly to the mansion worlds without the necessity of passing through the experience of death. Now that's you know, that's what we've talked about, that's what they call in this book translation. When you get completely aligned with your thought adjuster, you don't even die, you just literally, well, we talked about that's what we would call spontaneous human combustion. I'm sure it's the same thing. They call it translation.
这个那个部分提到这个 translation 转译哈，这个这个词，那么就是说，如果你的思想跟那思想调整完全是在一条线上的，那么你就是说，他就是说，就可以实现那种自然作画那种现象。
Yeah, you all know, I think we talked about this once before. You all know what spontaneous human combustion is, right?
自然就肉身没了，就那种状况呀。肉身一下。
Maybe I just spoke to you about it, Ricky. Did we speak to the whole group about it?
I think so. Yeah, I think in Tibetan Buddhist in some culture, cultivators in Tibetan religion, some monks when they die, they indeed can shrink their body to very small, or they even only remain have some nails and hair remains, and all other parts of the body.
They just like burst into flames, and then there's just a little greasy spot on the ground or something.
对，我就说到那种作画，你比如说一些的佛教里边的大修行者，他们临死的时候就身体变小，或者甚至有一些就只留下一点头发呀、指甲，其他的都没了，都能够就是自己自画，自然就没了，就画没了。然后
I didn't know that about that Tibetan monks did it. I've just heard that, it's just a thing you hear. One of these very strange things you hear, people have seen it happen, where someone will just burst into flames and then they're gone and they're never seen again,
对，那个海蒂不知道这个，我这个佛教修行者可以有这样的成就，他的印象当中那种自发自然的是，就相当于那个一种天火，就把它就烧了，好像那样的一个状况。
In English, it's that phenomenon is called spontaneous human combustion.
就是在英文当中，它叫什么自发性的人体燃烧。
The Urantia book calls it translation, and they don't say in the Urantia book, this is, you call this spontaneous human combustion, but it's possible that when the book was written, that term wasn't really widely known yet, or wasn't used yet.
对，就是在《玉苒廈之书》当中那个转译那个 translation， 它就是指的是这种情况。
So I'm not 100% sure that what we call spontaneous human combustion is the same thing they're talking about, but I'm pretty sure because it sure sounds like the same thing.
没有，他是说他不太确定他这里边的 translation 是不是指的这种情况，他是他自己大概做的一种联想吧，是这样，就是把这个跟这种自然现象联合就是起来，他联系起来，把这个 translation 这个词儿直接联系。
And at some point it tells us in the Urantia book that that in the Bible, I think it was Enoch. I'm pretty sure it was Enoch, the old prophet Enoch. He was translated, and the Bible says he was suddenly he disappeared into a chariot. They call it a chariot of flames.
对，那个在圣经当中有一个人就是这样的白日飞升的，一个叫以诺的，他就看有燃烧的火焰的马车被接走了，被这个燃烧火焰的马车给接走了。
In the future of the, I'm sorry, in the future of the planet, in the far future, when our planet is settled in light and life, many more and more people will die that way. They'll go directly to the Morancha world without passing through death, through normal death.
他说，在将来，就是当这个星球锚定在光和生命当中的时候，有很多人大概会以这种方式被转移，直接到宰下世界，不用经历平常的意义的死亡。
That's why I was joking with you guys a couple sessions ago and about people who are saying they're enlightened, and I'm saying if they were enlightened, they wouldn't be here. If they were enlightened, they would translate right to the Morancha world. You don't stay here once you're enlightened.
你哪个伙伴把那个麦关一下，好像有噪音。对，他就是以前他提过那个有些人宣扬自己开悟了，那么他就开玩笑说，如果你真的开悟了，那么你根本就不在这儿，你早就白日飞升了。
So
Okay, let me mute.
Okay, Ricky. Did you mute yourself? Ricky, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
very strange. I was kicked off.
So it says in this paragraph, it says that our dream life, which is so disjointed and so bizarre and chaotic and crazy, is like that because the dream experience is that disordered and disconnected parade of uncoordinated sleeping mind. That they say this is proof of the failure of the adjuster to harmonize and associate the divergent factors of the mind of man.
然后他在讲第二段哈，第二段梦境体验就是这么支离破碎的梦境的体验哈，混乱不连贯，那么证明调整者未能协调和关联影响人心识的不同因素。
In other words, if our mind was completely aligned with the mind of God or with our own thought adjuster, we wouldn't have such strange dreams.
从另外一句话来讲，如果我们的心识完全跟思想调整者一致，就不会出现这样的一种现象。
And eventually our mind does get completely aligned with the mind of our thought adjuster, and that'll be on the Marancha worlds. And when that happens, that's when we merge and become one person with our adjuster.
那么在宅下世界哈灵智体的时候，我们大概就是如果做到了跟这个思想调整者的完全的融合，有可能就不会出现这种情况。
But it says when the adjuster can align perfectly with human mind, it says, and as they sometimes have. So it's nice to know that Enoch was not the only one who translated in this lifetime on earth, but there have been others. And I believe that all these I believe that these monks that you've heard of, I never heard of the monks, or these people that we say had spontaneous human combustion. I believe that's probably what's happening.
对，他说可能不光是以诺达到了这样的一种水平，有可能其他的肉身的凡人，他们如果达到完全的协调，也是会发生这种不经过死亡而直接这个飞升的这样的一种现象。
And it's also interesting that they say when that happens, such souls are translated. This is the last sentence of that second paragraph. Such souls are translated directly to the mansion worlds without the necessity of passing through the experience of death. 对，这是最后一句，他们被直接转移到宅下世界，不需要经历死亡的体验。And it's not clear exactly what that means. I mean, obviously that means you just burst into flames and you're gone. Your body disintegrates from the extreme. Well, it's like combustion, it's so intense that you burst into flames. But what I'm trying to say is that in the normal death experience, after you die, you wake up on the mansion worlds 3 days later. It takes 3 days for you to wake up on the mansion world. This says your such cells are translated directly to the mansion worlds. I think this is saying if this were to happen, you'd go right there. You would just leave Earth and be there. You wouldn't need 3 days. Then I'm not sure about that. I'm just guessing.
那一般的我们经历死亡呢就是至少要3天嘛，3天，然后才摘下世界复活。那么他这个地方说直接转移到摘下世界，那么就说可能不用这个经历这个死了然后3天后复活这个过程。
Who's is Mimi reading?
真理
Shunli, okay. I'm gonna read two paragraphs and then she can read.
OK， 他要读下2段，然后沈丽一会儿把这下2段也读完。
During the slumber season, the adjuster attempts that's when we're sleeping. During the slumber season, the adjuster attempts to achieve only that which the will of the indwelt personality has previously fully approved by the decisions and choosings which were made during times of fully wakeful consciousness and which have thereby become lodged in the realms of the supermind, the liaison domain of human and divine interrelationship. While their mortal hosts are asleep, the adjusters try to register their creations in the higher levels of the material mind, and some of your grotesque dreams indicate the failure. Some of your grotesque dreams indicate their failure to make efficient contact. The absurdities of dream life not only testify to pressure of unexpressed emotions, but also bear witness to the horrible distortion of the representations of the spiritual concepts presented by the adjusters. Your own passions, urges, and other innate tendencies translate themselves into the picture and substitute their unexpressed desires for the divine messages which the indwellers are endeavoring to put into the psychic records during unconscious sleep. Okay, Shunli.
在内处主体沉睡阶段，调整者试着达到其人格在沉睡之前完全认可的那种意愿。这种意愿是在完全清醒的意识阶段做出的决定和选择所认可的。因此，这些决定和选择已经停留在超级心识领域，人与神之间交互关联的领域。在调整者的凡人主体睡着的时候，调整者试着将他们的创造登记到更高层次的物质心识中，而你们的一些外带的梦境表明他们无法进行有效的联系。梦境的荒谬性不仅证明了未被表达的情感的压力，也证明了对调整者所呈现的灵性概念代表的可怕扭曲。你们自己的激情、冲动和其他先天的倾向，将自己转化为画面，并用他们未表达的欲望代替神性信息。这些神性信息是内住者们在你们无意识睡眠期间力输入心理记录里的。
Okay. Okay. So this is interesting because what it's saying is that during sleep, the adjuster is trying to give us divine messages. There's a picture of substitute for the spiritual presence. So hold on. Witness the harbors of your passion design. Oh, I just wanted to. This was interesting. It says your adjusters are trying to put divine messages into the psychic records during unconscious sleep. Now, I don't know what they mean by the psychic records.
对，他这两段相当于提到，就是思想调整者利用我们睡眠无意识的那个就是表层意识挪去的这个阶段呢，把一些神性的信息登记到我们的心识心灵的记录当中他说他也不太确定他这个是什么意思。
I think it means our superconscious or our soul, it can receive messages even when our conscious mind is unaware of it. But I think well, I'm sure it can. I think that's what they're talking about by psychic records, because then those thoughts would be registered in our soul or our superconscious, even if we were unaware of it. But I think what they're saying is during sleep, sometimes they don't get registered properly because all of our we interfere with the delivery of those messages with our subconscious, distorting them with all of our, it says here, hold on.
他就说那个就是超意识可以在我们那个表层意识、清醒意识没有觉察的情况下呢，继续就是在那个往灵魂层面去那个搬运东西然后呢，有的时候他们并不那么容易，就是去往灵魂去搬东西，然后就是因为潜意识层面大概就会它扭曲，会造成一些阻碍障碍，他没有办法把他的创造登记到这个物质
我看到资料说，就是人睡着的时候，那个灵魂是可以，可能深睡眠的时候，灵魂是可以暂时离开身体的，所以思想调整者可以给心识注入这个神性的一种意识是吗？
Ricky, you want to translate?
He said during the deep sleep, the soul is actually detached from a human body, so super consciousness can work on the soul. Is that true?
Well, that's not what it's saying here.
他说这个不是这个地方不是说的这个。
It's saying that our unexpressed emotions and our passions and urges and other innate tendencies are actually affecting our dreams and distorting those messages that our adjuster is trying to give us.
对，他就说那个就是超意识可能想跟我们进行有效的联系，但是我们一些压抑的情绪什么的，就是有可能阻挡或者扭曲这样的一个信息的传递，影响这个它的这个准确传递，对，没办法直达我们的心识。
What is she saying? Our body, like you said, our body is detached from our. What was she saying? Our body is detached
soul.
from our.
She said the soul was detached or separated, or left the body.
Yeah. Well, the body has nothing to do with it, first of all, right? Because we're not talking about, none of this is affected by the body. This is all.
Or mind.
Yeah, see, that I don't think is true. I think our soul and our mind do not detach during sleep. We're just not conscious of what they're doing during sleep.
他说不是这个分离，而是我们只是没有意识到这个灵魂层面的工作 其实不光在睡眠当中啊，我们潜意识这个清醒的时候，我们也意识不到这个灵魂它是怎么接受更高的意识层面的这个工作，我们也都意识不到，只是在睡眠的时候可能阻碍会少一些吧，所以这个像调整者就抓紧干活。
可能是因为我们的意识表意识没有了，就没有这个阻力了，所以就更容易思想调整者更容易工作，是吧？
对呀，探照灯，你本来就是探照灯一直在那儿晃晃晃，那个像新来的偷袭的进不来这城堡。这个睡觉了，那看城楼的睡觉了，然后他就可以摸进来了，干一些事儿啊，接通一些电路啊，干啥的，他就可以做
Okay.
一些修饰的工作，修补的工作。对啊，但是我们潜意识有的时候在的时候，他没有办法做这种，他也不允许。但是这个地方，它就是说，实际上我们潜意识当中的一些的东西，比如说未被表达的情感的压力，即使在我们睡觉的时候，它也还在阻碍，还在起这个可怕扭曲的作用。
What translate?
I forgot what Shirley, what did you say?
I'm saying that because during sleep our consciousness is sleeping, so there is less resistance to adjuster's work.
Right.
He
I-
can give us more divine consciousness during our sleep.
I agree. I agree that that's probably why the adjuster is trying to give us these messages during our sleep, but it's not so easy because all of our subconscious desires and unexpressed emotions and passions and urges are still expressing themselves, and they do that in our dreams. So that's interfering with the adjuster's messages.
对，他再次强调，就是说那我们没实现的那些的激情啊，这个欲望啊，一些的那个压抑的情感呐，这些都容易带来荒诞的梦境，实际上表达的是对灵性概念的一种扭曲。
It's going to explain this more in the next paragraph, so maybe we should move on and then talk about it a little more after the next paragraph.
他说这下边他就会进一步的解释，有可能，所以我们可以先读了下一段，读了可能。
刚刚那个第一段好像 Heidi 没有说，有第三段没有说。
Ricky?
Cindy said
you skipped the section.
Didn't talk
three.
much about the third paragraph.
Right. We didn't read it yet. Oh, the one we just read?
No, above the 5-3.
During this slumber, the adjuster attempts to achieve only that which has yeah, because we didn't read that yet. That's what I didn't.
Really?
Oh, well, if
read-
no, you're I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Of course I read it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next paragraph says even more, but okay. So that paragraph, is okay. During the slumber season, the adjuster attempts to achieve only that which the will. Oh yeah. Okay. So this is where it says that, I'm sorry. This is where it says that they cannot give us any, they can't just insert messages or ideas to us unless we have pre-approved. That's why I'm always saying we have to constantly say, I want your guidance, teach me, talk to me, because they can't do it unless you approve it ahead of time.
对，它就是这个第五部分第3小节哈，这一段哈，他就说这个是神给我们指导，他是要我们的主观意志的许可的，所以为什么我们说祷告要说我想要得到你的指导啊，你的教诲和你跟我讲话，我们要这样一种完全认可、完全开放的这种的心态下面，然后他才会给我们他的指导。
And that's why it's so important to get in the habit of actually talking to your thought adjuster, in your mind, or out loud, either way, doesn't matter. But rather than just have these kind of, remember I talked about this recently, that we might have a tendency to say, hey, God knows what I feel. I don't have to say it, but you do have to say it.
对，就所以养成跟神交谈的习惯非常重要，就是这种开放的交流的渠道哈。你记得我前些日刚提到说，有可能我们会说啊，神知道我怎么想，神知道我怎么感觉，那这个不能这样，你还是要主动的把这个东西要跟神表达你的诉求。
Because for example, we might have a deep inner longing to be closer to God and to receive his guidance, but we may have another longing to avoid God's guidance and to not want any part of it. So that's why we have to consciously say, while we're awake and fully conscious, no, I want your guidance. That's my decision. Right? Does that make sense?
我们有可能有很深的内在的一种诉求，就是想要神的指导，但是呢，可能潜意识另外一部分也还抵抗这样神的指导。那么，所以我们还清醒的时候，我们就要明确的表达，我们是想要神的指导。
I mean, we're so lucky we have this book. We can, now that we just read this, we can even say, God, you have my permission right now for the rest of my life to give me all the good guidance you can while I sleep.
对，我们有这本书，教导我们哈，那我们就是说可以跟神祷告说啊，就我从今以后我的一生，你有我的允许，就是把一切好的指导哈，都来给我告诉我。
What this is telling us is that although our conscious mind turns off while we sleep, our unconscious mind doesn't turn off. And so we, in one way, it is a good time for the adjuster to give us messages, but in another way, because our conscious mind is turned off, so our conscious mind is not interfering. So that's a good time for it to try to give us messages. On the other hand, it's saying our unconscious mind still is interfering. And that's okay. I'll let you translate that, and then I'll have one more point.
所以一方面来讲，我们睡着的时候，因为没有了主观的清醒的意识，是很好的一个时间，让思想调整者来给我们的心识来工作。另外一方面，那也是对那个潜意识的阻挡，那他也没有办法去越过，相当于。
So that's why hold on, I just want to use as previously filled the decisions make full unconscious. That's why so when it says here the absurdities of dreams indicate their failure to make efficient contact. The absurdities of dream life not only testify to pressure of unexpressed emotions, but bear witness to the horrible distortion, blah, blah, blah. So the last point I want to make about that paragraph is that maybe in other words, this is telling us something else. It's saying that unexpressed emotions need some kind of outlet. So if we're not expressing them in our conscious life, they're going to be expressed in our dream life, in our unconscious life. In other words, I mean, they specifically use the word unexpressed emotions. So I would take this as guidance to say, hey, learn to express your emotions. Learn not to bury all these passions and urges and desires because they're just going to get in the way. Learn to express them when you're conscious so that they don't need to be expressed during our dream life.
对，他从第二段5.4这一段当中得到的启示，就是我们不要去压抑我们的情感、情绪，一些强烈的诉求，我们就要表达出来。那这样的话，它就不会在梦境当中起到这样的阻挡的扭曲的作用。
So they're talking about our passions, urges, and other innate tendencies. And they're talking about our unexpressed emotions, which I think are related to that.
对，那就是激情啊，内在的这个诉求啊，这些的渴望啊，这些。
So this would be a good reason to try to learn to sort out all those things in our conscious mind. And, we can let the adjuster help us with this stuff. I mean, this is this is why people go to therapists. I mean, it's not so easy to deal with unexpressed emotions and deep rooted passions and urges and other innate tendencies. It's, it's hard work. So, we may need help, spiritual help, or even therapeutic help, or even talking to a good friend, or having a talk with our adjuster about these things. But I think it would be good for all of us to get into the habit of not burying things and not dealing with them, because then they're going to come out in our dream life and then they're going to interfere with the adjuster's work.
Yeah. 那就是所以实际上并不是那么容易，有些深埋在心底的那些的激情啊、冲动啊、其他先天的倾向去表达出来，那么有一些帮助啊，比如说疗愈师的帮助啊、灵性指导或者好朋友这些的疏导，反正无论如何就不要把这些深埋在心里边，因为这样的话呢会影响到你的梦中生活，影响的像调整者来这个顺利的传达转移它的信息到你的心识。
Okay. The next paragraph is the one which is going to tell us even more about this, and then we can talk more if we need to about all this stuff. So I'm just going to read Shunli. I'm just going to read one paragraph. Okay. So here we go. While the mortal hosts...
No, that's you already read. You read
Sorry, all right. It is extremely dangerous to postulate as to the adjuster content of the dream life. The adjusters do work during sleep, but your ordinary dream experiences are purely physiologic and psychologic phenomena. Likewise, it is hazardous to attempt the differentiation of the adjuster's concept registry from the more or less continuous and conscious reception of the dictations of mortal conscience. These are problems which will have to be solved through individual discrimination and personal decision. But a human being would do better to err in rejecting an adjuster's expression through believing it to be a purely human experience than to blunder in exalting a reaction of the mortal mind to the sphere of divine dignity. Remember, the influence of a thought adjuster is for the most part, though not wholly, a superconscious experience.
胜利。
推测梦境中的调整者内容是极其危险的。调整者确实在你睡眠时工作，但是你的普通梦境经历纯粹是生理和心理现象。同样，试图将调整者的概念登记与或多或少持续和有意识的接受凡人良心的指令区分开来，这也是危险的。这些都是必须通过个人识别和个人决定来解决的问题。但是，如果人类误认为调整者的表达只是一种纯粹的人类概念，从而拒绝接受调整者的表达，那么犯这样的错误，总比错误的把凡人心识的反应提升到神性庄严的范畴要好。记住，思想调整者的影响在很大程度上是一种超意识体验，尽管不是全部。
Okay, so the Urantia book says this many times throughout the book, that if you're not sure if a message is your mind or from your adjuster, if you're not sure if a dream is just a normal dream you had or a message from God, don't assume it's a message from God. Don't assume it's from God. It's better not to do that because you may be wrong. It's better to assume it's from your own mind, even if you're wrong, than to assume that it's better to assume a godly message is from your own mind than to assume and be wrong, than to make the mistake of thinking something that from your mind is from God, because that's dangerous. Does that make sense?
Yes, 他就这一段基本上就强调的就是说，你宁肯说把你一些的梦境的体验哈，就想成你自己的属人跟人性层面的你自己的很平常的一个梦，而不要把这个你是你的投射的，你的心理投射的那些梦呢，想成哎呀，这是上帝给我的指示啊，要好得多。对，这样他就说宁肯把真正的那个神的指示当成你自己的头脑，这样危险还小一些，而把你自己的头脑投射的想成哎，这是神给你的启示，那个就有点牵强，不要尽量那个错误更严重。
So notice the first sentence. It is extremely dangerous. So they don't just say it's a bad idea or it's not good. They say it's extremely dangerous. And they say that because when people, that's why I'm always making little jabs and jibes and criticizing, which, I shouldn't do. All these people who say, oh, I talk to God and I'm, I'm enlightened and I'm here to give you a message. And now sometimes they say that and you absolutely feel they're telling the truth and there's no doubt about it. But so often, whenever you're not sure, you should assume they're wrong. It's the same thing because they're saying because it's extremely dangerous, because that's how you can get on the wrong track, or you can lead people astray, or you can lead yourself on the wrong track. When you start thinking that something human is actually from divine, you can end up, getting very bad direction because you think it's from God and it's not from God. So that's why they say it's extremely dangerous. So be very careful about that.
对，他这第一句话就强调非常的危险哈，你就是推测调整者内容啊，它就是这个非常那个的严重的一种提醒呢，就是说有些人说啊，我跟神讲话啊，神这个给我启示了，我开悟了啊，我来给你们带来神的信息啊，你可能他们听他们的讲话听起来像。很非常的真理性哈，没有疑惑。但是呢，你宁肯说，去假设他们不是就是那个这真正的像他们宣告的那样，否则你就是如果是很迷信的人，你就很容易被引上歧途，或者你自己你也不要去假设，好像你真的受了什么天启啊，因为这样就是很容易走上一个那个很不好的方向。
So then they go back to conscience and they say, remind us what about the conscience again. So they say, you know, it's they say the adjusters do work during sleep, but your ordinary dream experiences are purely physical and psychological. Likewise, it is hazardous to attempt the differentiation of the adjuster's concept from the mortal conscience. So they remind us again that it's the same with the dreams as with your conscience, the same idea. Whenever you feel your conscience, don't assume that's your adjuster. Whenever you have a dream, don't assume that's from God. They're saying the same thing applies for both.
对，他就又提到良心的问题嘛，就是说你大部分的睡梦都是生理和心理现象，并不是像调整者给你的什么指导。还有你这很多时候你接受这是你自己的良心的指令，也不一定就是思想调整者试图概念进行概念登记，所以就是大部分时间你都要往那个比较低的那个层次去想，而不是往高的层次去想，因为你从高的维度，你有时候就是很危险，你自己把自己给领到迷途上去了。
Now they're not saying assume everything is from your own mind. Assume they're not saying that. They're just saying these are problems which will have to be solved through individual discrimination and personal decision. But it would be better, as I said before, to make the mistake of thinking it's your own mind than thinking it's God's mind if you're not sure. But what they're saying here, again, these are problems which need to be solved through individual discrimination and personal decision. So you have to, if you're absolutely sure that you got a divine message, then you did. I mean, you have to, you have to decide yourself on an individual basis, but be very careful about it.
他也强调这必须通过个人识别和个人决定来解决，但是必须要小心的，很小心这个领域。对。
So I'm going to give you an example of a dream. I've had a few dreams in my life which I felt were absolutely messages. I had no doubt about it. Just a few in my whole life.
对，那就他一生当中，他的确有一些的梦啊，是他就非常确定是从思想调整者来的。
These are the kind of dreams that you never forget and that guide you and help you make good decisions for the rest of your life.
的确，他就是非常难忘，那个就是的确，他指导你，就是说这余生，就是能比较走在正确的方向上。
Or they could just increase your faith in God or your ability to love, or something. They would have a very positive effect on you.
对，它是加强了我的信念，然后使我增强了我爱的能力，反正就是有非常正面的影响。
So a long, long time ago, I had a dream that I was the commander of a spaceship and I was out in space.
他说很久很久以前，他梦到过宇宙飞船，他是在那个宇宙飞船上是一个指挥官一样的角色。
Now I was much younger then.
那个我好像很年轻。
But in the dream, I was much older.
这是我年轻时候做的梦嘛，但是在梦里边，我年纪更大、更成熟一些。
And I was a man.
我是一个男的。
And I had a cape.
Had a what?
A purple cape. A cape. You know what a cape is like?
他说有一个紫色的斗篷。Wow, you are Superman.
I was a space commander on the ship and I had a purple cape. And I had white hair. And
他说他有那个白色的头发，紫色的斗篷，然后是一个这个宇宙飞船上的一个指挥官。
And I was very esteemed. I was very highly placed and admired. And I reached a very high level position. And I was very admired by my staff and by my superiors. And I had a lot of responsibility.
他说他这个是非常受人尊敬的这么一个角色，是非常的高级别的这么一个角色，然后他的手下呀和他的上司啊都非常尊重他。
I had a wonderful career already where I had done, I always did really successful missions.
那他就是说那个事业上非常成功，就是他在每一次完成使命的时候都是非常成功的。
So that's why they gave me very important missions to do.
所以每次都给我很重要的任务做。
So I was on a mission out in space and something went terribly wrong. Some people, my subordinates, the people who were right under me, made a terrible, terrible mistake.
对，有一次是不是大概被分配去解决一个任务，那个他的下属那个犯了很严重的错误。
And there were grave consequences.
很严重的后果。
So I was alone in a room on the spaceship, and I had to make a huge, what the Urantia calls a supreme decision.
那么我单独在这个一个房间里，我要做出非常非常重大的决定。
I had to explain to my superiors what happened.
那我对我的上司解释发生了什么事情。
And the decision I had to make was, do I tell the superiors that my subordinates screwed up, or do I take full responsibility myself?
我的决定是这样子的，我去跟上司告诉说是我的下属把事情搞坏了，还是我承担下所有的责任。
And the truth was, it was my subordinates who screwed up. I had done everything right, but it was their mistake.
对，
That's what actually happened.
真相实际上的确是我的下属把事情搞糟的，我做的都没有错。
So I went alone in this room, right before I met with my superiors to figure out what I should say.
对，我就在那个单独在那个房间里边，就在那儿考虑到底我要怎么说，怎么去跟会面的时候要怎么样说。
And then I just knew I had to take full response, that I was a captain and I had to take full responsibility myself and not even tell them who screwed up. I had to just go and report. I'm the captain, I take full responsibility. That's what I had to say.
对，我是舰长，我就是应该负起全部的责任，把这个错误全都揽下来，自己承担责任。这个是一个正确的，正确的。
Go on.
对，就是他决定要这么做。
And then I remember walking out of that room and heading, I was going to go to the meeting with my superiors, and then and I already knew what I was going to do, and then I woke up.
我就走出那个房间，我已经知道自己要怎么样做，然后在那个节点我醒了。Wow.
Now, yeah.
What
So
a great dream.
Yeah, that's a kind of dream that you remember your whole life, and it helps you to make decisions. It helps you to make the right decision. Later, you never forget that dream.
对，那么这个梦就是永远也不会忘记，它帮助我做出正确的决定。
And I knew then, and I know now that was a dream from my thought adjuster.
那我那时候也知道，现在也知道，这个梦就是从我的思想调整者来的。
Because I had never even thought of anything like that.
因为我自己从来不会想到这些。
But later in my life, I was a manager, and I had a lot of people under me, and there were a couple times when they did make big mistakes, and I went to my boss and I took full responsibility because of that dream.
那个过后，在生活当中，就是我作为一个监管，然后那个手下犯错误，然后呢，我在上司跟前承担了所有的责任。那么这种举动就是在受这个梦的启发做出的。
And I've had a few other dreams too, which I'll talk about some other time. But I just wanted to share one to tell you that some dreams you can, sometimes
我就很多的梦要分享，过后慢慢分享。现在就是分享这一个，然后告诉你说，有一些的梦的确对你有很重大的意义。Yeah, that's a great dream. You are so courageous. You know that you have the strength and courage to face the challenge in real life. So that dream prepare you to confront and face the real challenge in reality.
That dream gave me the courage. I may not have had it without that dream.
我就说这个梦实际上就是给他一种，对，他也同意，就给他一种信心。这个梦本身给他这个力量和勇气去面对生活的挑战。他说他甚至都不知，在没有这个梦之前，他甚至都不知道自己有这个勇气。但是这个梦相当于就是加持强化了他。对。
When I walked in that room on the spaceship to make my decision, it was very dark. I kept the lights off. There's just a few dim lights from the board, the board in the spaceship, but when I walked in the room to make that decision, I knew that decision was going to affect the rest of my life and my career, because it might have anyway. You know, a lot of times when you blame other people, it doesn't work out so well for you anyway. But you at least try. You know, not to take the blame yourself.
Yeah, right. 他说他走进那个房间，他就是要静思，要怎么样回应的反映这件事情的时候，他把所有的灯都关了啊，在那个飞船上，就是只有那个仪表板的一些灯还亮着。他说他知道他这样做会影响他的职业生涯啊，但是他还是仍然做出这样的决定。当然，有的时候你就是即使你把错误都归咎到别人身上，就是你也不一定能让你脱责，但是至少呢有可能有脱责的可能，但是在那个决定当中，我就是相当于就全部把责任揽下来了。Yeah.
But if I had blamed my subordinates, they would have gotten fired and their careers would have been ruined. If I took the blame, this was why it was such a hard decision for me. If I took the blame, I thought my career will probably be over.
对，那么如果我怪罪我的下属，那么我的下属的就是职业生涯就这样葬送了。对，但是我就说，如果我都揽下来，有可能我的职业生涯就这样葬送了。
So when I walked in that room, I knew I had to make a very, very tough decision, and I didn't know what the right answer was. But when I walked out of the room, I held my head high, and I knew I was making the right decision.
对，当我走进那个屋子的时候，我就是知道自己要做一个非常艰难的决定，但是我从那个屋子里走出来的时候，我的头是高高的昂着的，我知道我做了一个很正确的决定。
And I've known ever since that's the right decision to make in a situation like that.
那么我就非常确信，在那样的情况下，这是我能做出的最正确的决定。从那里以后，
You see politicians and big business people all the time. When a big mistake happens, all these people under them, they get fired, but they keep their job.
他说：“你看，在政治舞台上面，你就会看到，当有一个不好的事情发生的时候，那些相关的直接的人都被那个炒鱿鱼了，但是那个当头的还在。”
They never had my dream.
他说那些头从来没有过我这样的梦，开玩笑的。They should be trained in their dream to be more courageous, but not act like cowards. 我就说他们都应该在梦里边受这样的信心和勇气的训练，而不是表现得像一个胆小鬼。Yeah.
So, okay, I'll read the next paragraph.
他说他要读下一段。
In varying degrees and increasingly, as you ascend the psychic circles, which we're going to read about next section. In varying degrees and increasingly, as you ascend the psychic circles, those are the 7 psychic circles we're about to read about. Sometimes directly, but more often indirectly, you do communicate with your adjusters, but it is dangerous to entertain the idea that every new concept originating in the human mind is the dictation of the adjuster. More often, in beings of your order, that which you accept as the adjuster's voice is in reality the emanation of your own intellect. This is dangerous ground, and every human being must settle these problems for himself in accordance with his natural human wisdom and superhuman insight. Take it away, Shun-Li.
中文。
在不同程度上，随着你心灵圆圈的提升，你确实与你的调整者进行交流。 这些交流有时是直接的，但更多时候是间接的。但是，认为每一个源于人类心识的新概念都是调整者的传述，这种想法是危险的。更多的时候，在你们这个层次的存有中，你们当作调整者的声音接受的，实际上是你们自己智性的发散。这是一个危险的领域，每个人都必须根据自己天然的人类智慧和超人的洞察力，为自己解决这些问题。OK。
Okay, so so they're saying that as we ascend the psychic circles, so throughout our lifetime, if we're on the right path and we're going in the right direction, we are increasing our communication with our adjusters, and we are getting messages either directly or indirectly.
对，我们终其一生，就是如果行在正确的路上，肯定是跟向调整者走得越来越近的，就是向调整者可以直接间接的跟我们交流。
And directly would mean when we actually feel like we hear God's voice or have a conversation, and indirectly is more like maybe when they're giving us messages in our superconscious, in our sleep, or when we just have a gut feeling, or we just have a hunch, or we just have sudden desire to do something. Those would be the indirect.
对，有的时候会直接跟你讲话呀，有的时候是通过其他的间接的方式啊，给你一个直觉啊，或者让你起鸡皮疙瘩，或者心里边一下子升起一种强烈的愿望啊，要怎么样做啊，动机啊，这个对，这都是就有可能他跟你交流的方式。
I think there's also times when you allow your own mind, when you allow yourself, I've talked about this before, when you learn to or allow yourself to think with your soul, to start thinking with your soul, at that time, you may not be getting a message from your adjuster, but you may be in line with your adjuster. You may be thinking with thoughts that have already been with your higher mind that has already been created by your adjuster and your own mind. So you might just be in harmony with your adjuster. You may be looking at something the same way. When you feel great appreciation for beauty, or for some kind of art or performance, or appreciation of a person or child or an animal or a sunset, all these kinds of very deep feelings that sometimes give you chills down your spine. At these times, you might not just be getting messages from your adjuster indirectly, but you may both be thinking the same thing at the same time. You might be in harmony with your adjuster.
他就说我们其实慢慢的可以学习，就是用灵魂来思考哈。如果我们跟思想调整者是指协调一致的一种状态，更高的一种心识的频率，更和谐的，跟思想调整者在一起，那么实际上我们对美就会有更高的珍赏，对艺术啊一些的。那个动物啊，孩子啊，就是特别的，会有一种特别的一种珍赏和感觉。那或者有的时候你就是有一种，他就说那个起鸡皮疙瘩的感觉啊，对，在某些时刻，这都有可能是你的想象人跟你是在一起的。 不一定直接的好像听到什么信息，你就在这样的感觉当中，有可能实际上就是跟那个向调整者和谐一致的一个表现。
So when they're saying that so again, you will increasingly get more messages from your adjuster, but they're saying once again, this is dangerous ground, and every human being must settle these problems for himself in accordance with his natural wisdom and superhuman insight. So they're saying they're really trying to drive home the point that we have to be very careful not to just start thinking that our own thoughts are the thoughts of God.
他就是这次又强调一个危险这个词，就是基本上来讲，你大部分这种的，那就是你自己天然的人类智慧啊，你要用这个去辨别啊，去那个是不是思想调整者的声音，大部分应该是我们自己知性的发散，就归于我们自己知性的发散，而不一定归于这个思想调整者的声音。
So why are they telling us over and over again how dangerous this is? Here's why. This is why, because they say right here, more often in beings of your order, that which you accept as the adjuster's voice is in reality the emanation of your own intellect. So the reason they keep telling us how dangerous this is because they're saying very often we're doing it. People are doing it all the time. They make this mistake all the time. More often, they're saying, more times they're wrong than right. That's why they're telling us to be careful about this.
对，因为在我们这层次是容易犯这个错误，所以他就反复的强调哈，很多时候我们就把这些声音当成调整者的声音，这个是我们常犯的错误，所以他反复的提醒我们这个危险的领域。
And also remember that the adjuster doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't answer all your questions directly. The adjuster has a very different way of communicating with us. So, it's not like, oh, God told me to do that. Now, occasionally, a couple times in your life, if you may get a direct message, but that's very, very rare.
对，其实神他并不直接的回答你的问题，他跟你的交流用着不同的方法，所以你如果说神告诉我怎么样，这往往就是非常稀有的，他不会这样直接的告诉你。
I meant a direct, I didn't mean a direct message because many people do learn to communicate with their adjusters all the time. I meant it's rare that you would get a command from your adjuster. It's rare that they would just tell you what to do, like something like, do this now, that's rare.
对，命令，对，他当然不否认有些时候神直接跟你说话，但是神大部分时间他不会命令你怎么做。
I was there's this person that I have been listening to for, I don't know, maybe 15 years. I don't want to say who, doesn't matter who, but someone who has videos on the internet, right? It has their own channel on the internet. And I've thought a lot about them because they said things, many things that everyone thought they were crazy, and everyone said they were crazy, but almost everything they said came true years later.
有一个就是优管的博主吧，他是15年了，在上面有一些的视频，然后就他的频道，那么他说那有些话的时候，很多人觉得很疯狂，但是他们说他说的话几年之后都会成为现实，实现了都。
He said things that seemed so paranoid and so crazy that he almost just became like a big joke on the internet. Everyone knew who he was and everyone made fun of him all the time.
对，他有些的说法就是像一个我妄想恐惧一样的，好像很多人都觉得他在开玩笑，不相信他。
But he also had a very big following of people who really believed him.
当然还有一些人相信他，就是追随他。
So he became a powerful influence, even though he was made fun of.
Even though
he was people always made fun of him, he still became a very powerful influence because he had so many followers who believed him.
对，虽然大家取笑他，但是还是有很多关注嘛，还是有很多人相信他。
Now I'm talking about him because I had decided in my own mind that he was, he's mentioned God now and then. I listen to him now and then, and I know he believes very much in God and in good and evil and in doing the right thing and in the big battle of good and evil that's taking place on the world. I know he believes in all that.
对，我也关注他，就是他也经常的时不时的提及神啊，提及是善恶之争啊，在现在的地球上发生的事情。
But last night, but I had decided for myself that he is probably an agent of God because he sort of is one of those people who is ahead of the group. Everyone makes fun of him, but he's changing the way people think. He's the first one to say things that no one knows about or everyone else would be afraid to say.
我慢慢觉得他可能真的是神的代言人，因为他总是走在前面，就是把那个改变人们的思维习惯，那么就经常有一些就是没有人提及的一些的事情，他在前面是先锋那样的。
So I, in my own mind, had already decided that he was, whether he knew it or not, had very strong celestial influences at work with him.
对，他不管，我就是觉得不管他是不是真的知道，我是认为就是有一些灵界存有跟他在一起工作的。
Now this guy has been around for at least 30 years, at least, maybe longer.
那么这个人大概出道有30多年吧。
Now last night, I just happened to I wasn't looking for it. I just happened to, this video popped up on this one website, and he was telling a story that I had never heard before, and he was saying that only a couple times in his life he's had really true religious experiences, like supernatural religious experiences.
这昨天晚上就是一个视频，就是蹦出来，就是他说到在他的是过去的生活当中都是就是有一些超意识的、超自然的或者真正的宗教性的体验。
And he said how about 30 or more years ago, he had just finished his dinner and he was in a restaurant. It was completely empty. He was the last one there. And all of a sudden he felt this powerful, powerful presence from God.
他说大概30多年前，那个他就是吃完晚饭，然后感觉那里非常的空虚，然后突然就感到就是一个神的临在。
It was absolutely overwhelming, magnificent presence.
是一个非常的 强大的，那个很棒的这么一种那个临在。
And he got a complete message. He got an assignment. God asked him, told him, this is what we had, what your assignment is, but do you accept it? And he did accept it.
那得到很清晰的信息，然后神说，OK，有这样的给你分配这样的工作，那么你愿不愿意做？
And the assignment was that he would, be the guy who was the first guy to tell the truth about all these different things. And they said that he would be mocked and ridiculed and persecuted, and that things would get very, very hard for him, but that eventually he would reach many, many people and have a great influence. They told him everything, and all of it happened exactly like they said. And he's saying that now, 30 years later, now he's telling the story.
那么他就是说，你给你这个工作呢，你就是要讲真话，那个在不同的事上你都要讲真话，但是你会被人嘲笑、讥讽，然后迫害，然后是会经历一些的苦难人生。但是呢，你的信息会让很多的人听到，然后会产生很大的影响。那么30年过去了，就是实际上这就是他的人生体验，就是这样子的。非常的跟原来他受到的这个警告都是一样的。
And he has told so much truth about so many powerful people before anyone else said these things, or anyone else had the nerve to say these things. And he has they have gone after him so hard and tried to ruin him so many times. But the fact is, because he had that, we'll call it assignment or commission, he always had the strength to get through all of it because he knew all that was coming. He was prepared for it.
对，他就是在这么多年，他这很多关于很多的，就是说有权有势的人的一些的人的真相，然后其他人可能根本就没有那个胆量去说的，他的确被人就是追，就是说迫害，然后很多人就想把他给毁掉，然后但是因为这个事实是他有这样一个上天的使命，然后所以他实际上一直被加持的，他有力量坚持做这样的事情。
And he said that God told him it's going to be hell. They're going to put you through hell. You'll go through some very, very difficult times, but I'll be there with you all the way.
对，他说神告诉他说你要经历地狱一般的试炼，非常的困难，充满挑战，但是呢，我一直会在那里与你同在。
And when this happened, when he had this experience, he wasn't famous and no one knew who he was. He was just a nobody.
当他有这个灵性体验的时候，他也没有名气，他实际上是一个无名小卒。
And God told him, that he would influence very, very powerful people.
他说你对神当初跟他说，就说他说你会对一些很有权势的人产生影响。
And now 30 years later, he certainly has. Everybody knows who he is. He has influenced presidents. He has influenced the most famous people in America. I mean, he's very, very influential.
他说30年过去了，他现在就是家喻户晓的人物，他影响到总统啊，还有其他的一些著名的人。
Now, he's not one of these people who goes around saying, God told me this and God told me that, and I talk to God every day. He's not like that at all. He says only a couple times in his life did he have these experiences.
对，他不是那种到处说啊，我跟神讲话，神跟我讲话，blah blah，对，就是这样，他很少说这样的话。
So he's not someone who's, he doesn't have direct communication with his thought adjuster ordinarily.
对，他不是那种说啊，你这个跟神有直接对话的那样。
There are other people who I believe do have much more direct and frequent communication, but they're not necessarily as, they don't necessarily have these dramatic these dramatic visits like this guy had.
对，就是说这个人他不是那种频繁的跟神有直接通话的，但是有其他的人what about the other people? The other people
Well, what I'm saying I'm saying two things. One, I'm saying, other people might have more direct communication with their thought adjuster, and they may be able, I've seen people, online, and certain religious people who
channeling. You mean they are channeling?
No, not channeling. That's not channeling. Communicating.
Communicate. 那就是有一些，对，他不像有一些人，大概有经常很频繁的跟他们的思想调整有沟通的。
But they're not pretentious. They're not like bragging about it, or it's just, I think a lot of people on this planet, a lot of religious, or spiritual people can talk to God and hear God. I don't think it's that uncommon.
他说就是那些跟神有更频繁接触的，那么他们也不是假装的或者是夸张的，那么现在能听到神的讲话的人越来越多了。
Many people say they talk to God, and many of those people just think it's a perfectly natural thing to do, and I think that many of them actually do, not all of them, but many of them.
对，很多人只是例行的跟神说话，认为这是很自然的事情。
Now, this guy does not say that. He's saying that just a few times in his life he had these supernatural experiences, but he knew when they happened, he knew they were real.
对，这个人他就很少提及他的超自然的体验啊，对。但是当他有这种体验的时候，他知道这是真的。
But this particular experience, every single thing they said would happen to him has already happened to him.
对，在这些的超自然体验当中，那个他被警告会发生的事情都是已经发生了。
And it was very interesting for me to see this, because I had already decided that was what was happening, that he was working, that he was an agent of powerful celestial forces that are working for the good of this planet. I had already figured that out for myself. So this just confirmed it for me.
对，就是在他讲他自己的这个超自然体验之前，其实我已经确定他就是神的一个代理啊，是一个就是很有强大的这个灵界存有的那个就是说接受了这样的一个使命，给这个地球带来一些好的事情啊，他有这样的一个使命。那么在他没说自己这个超自然体验之前，我就已经知道这个事儿。
I was just amazed that he knew it consciously, that he knew exactly, I think a lot of people do these things and work with celestials for the good of the planet, but they don't realize the role they're playing. And it was really wonderful to find out that he knew exactly what was going on. And he knew a lot about, you know, he seemed to know a lot of things like that the Urantia book teaches, and I'm sure he never read the Urantia book.
对，他只是有意识的知道他的使命。那么有一些人他也做同样的事情，但是并不一定有意识的知道。那么他说的好多事情，其实就是跟《月然下之书》非常的相合。
Like for instance, he knew that life begins at conception, and he seems to know that this is our first life, but that we live, that if we choose the right path, we will live forever and have, you know, extraordinary, amazing, miraculous, you know, future lives.
他说这个生命啊，起于这个就是那个受精的片刻。那么这是我们的肉身生命，是我们第一次生命。如果我们走的道路正确，那么过后会有更充满奇异的那个奇迹的生命在前面等着我们。
Now the Urantia book does not say that life starts at conception, but they imply it. I think you can guess that it does, because they start, your thought adjuster starts planning your life way before he ever comes into your body.
对，思想调整者，计划你的人生，在他还没有来到，就进驻到你里面之前，就已经在参与规划你的人生。
They're very aware of your ancestors, your DNA, they know so much about you. You know, they come into your body usually when you're around 6 years old, when you're capable of making a moral decision. You know, when you make your first moral decision, that's when your thought adjuster comes into your body. But they know so much about you. They've even already created a whole plan for your life before they come into you.
对，他要了解你的祖先呢，你的生物的 DNA 啊，那个这些所有的评估，这些所有的状况。然后6岁的时候，当你能够做第一个道德决定的时候，他来进驻，但是他对你的人生有一个总体的规划。
So if they know all this about you, the day you're born, I would guess that they know all of this about you before you're born. That's my guess.
对，他在你没有出生之前就已经了解你所有这些。
Okay, I'm going to finish up this section. Okay, so there's one more. Okay, there's one more paragraph for this section.
最后一段。
The adjuster of the human being through whom this communication is being made. Oh, this is really, Ricky, you can translate what I'm saying and then I'll read. This is really interesting. They're talking about the guy who is channeling this book right now. They hardly ever mention him in this book.
最后这一段呢，第5节最后这一段呢，就是说的是传导这本书的这个人，专门他是这个书很少提及这个传导这个书的这个人，但是这一段就是提到这个人。
Okay, so the adjuster of the human being through whom this communication is being made enjoys such a wide scope of activity, chiefly because of this human's almost complete indifference to any outward manifestations of the adjuster's inner presence. It is indeed fortunate that he remains consciously quite unconcerned about the entire procedure. He holds one of the highly experienced adjusters of his day and generation, and yet his passive reaction to and inactive concern toward the phenomena associated with the presence in his mind of this versatile adjuster is pronounced by the guardian of destiny to be a rare and fortuitous reaction. And all this constitutes a favorable coordination of influences, favorable both to the adjuster in the higher sphere of action and to the human partner from the standpoints of health, efficiency, and tranquility. Go for it, Chun-Li.
内住正在与之交流的人类个体的调整者拥有如此广泛的活动范围，主要是因为这个人几乎完全忽视内在调整者存在的任何外在表现。幸运的是，这个人仍然有意识地对整个过程漠不关心。此人拥有他那个时代和那一代经验高度丰富的调整者之一。然而，命运的守护者认为，他对与这位出现在他心史中的多才多艺的调整者相关现象的消极反应和无动于衷，是一种罕见的和偶然的反应。所有这一切构成了影响的有力协调，对双方都有利。在更高的行为领域利于调整者，在健康、效率和安宁的立场方面利于人类伙伴。这段我没理解。
Shirley said she didn't understand this paragraph at all.
Okay.
Because
So-
Shirley didn't. I think we talked about this when the first few sessions, and Shirley, I missed those sessions.
Yeah, they don't talk about this guy. This is one of the only places in the book where they mention the guy. This was the guy who actually channeled the book. He either spoke it or he wrote it. I believe he would wake up in the night and like sort of talk in his sleep, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure quite how it happened.
就是这个关于讲这个传导这个人的，他说他也不确定这个人他是说出来的，在梦中说出来的，还是他那个写下来的。I think it's speaking. He spoke out.
I think so too. I think someone, either his wife or his mother, heard him and started writing it down every night. I think that's how it went.
这是他的妻子还是他的妈妈？反正就是把这个他说的话写下来。But later, it's that doctor, that doctor who.
Dr. Sadler, but he found these people and he heard about what they were doing, and then he examined it and he decided it was the real thing, and he took an interest in it, and then he started a forum, and then they started reading the papers, but he never saw the actual channeling happening or anything like that. Well, he may have, but I don't think so.
我说后期大概是那个就是萨德勒医生，他就是给他记录下来的。他说最一开始，他说就是他的这个传导者的亲人，反正报告给他的。他本来是来打假的，结果他后来发现他说的一些的那个非常的有真实性，所以后来他就这个萨德勒医生就形成一个论坛，整个的来整理他传导出来的信息。
Dr. Sadler, Dr. William Sadler, or Bill for short, Bill Sadler, he was a well-known psychologist of his day. This is back in like the 1920s or 30s, and he used to go around debunking. At that time, there was like a fashionable trend for spiritualists, people who would like mediums who let you talk to ghosts or talk to your dead grandmother, or, you know, or stuff like that. And he used to go around debunking them and proving that they were fakes.
那就是这个威廉萨德勒医生是世纪20年代、30年代的，他就是那时候的心理学家，是心理科的医生应该算。他那会儿就是对那些的灵媒啊什么的，经常或是会传导啊，你的祖父母说什么话呀，什么之类的，他是不相信这些的，他是到处揭露这些的假象的，他是这种角色。
And then he heard about this guy, and he went to to debunk him, to find out what was really going on. And this was the first one that I believe, this is the story, I think this is the way it went, that this one he was like, he couldn't debunk it. It was like he realized this was the real thing.
他是听说就有这么一个人在睡梦当中说话，然后就是他也要去打架，但是这个他打不了，他认为这个说的这个是真的。
So obviously this guy, we'll call him the channeler. Nobody knows what his name is. It's not anywhere in this book. It's not written anywhere. It's a complete secret who this guy was. We'll call him the channeler.
这通灵的人呢，他的名字啊是谁呀？就是从来在每个地方、什么地方都没有提及的，我们只是就是统称他这个是通灵者。
Now, the reason they kept this such a secret is because they know how human nature is. Even though the channeler didn't even care about it at all, he thought it was no big deal, because he was a very unusual person. Even though he didn't care about it, they knew that human beings like us who read the book would try to make him into some kind of cult leader or superhero or godlike guy.
对，他这个把他的名字保持秘密，就是因为人性，因为他们知道人性，灵界哈，知道我们人性就是关心这些事情。如果你这个书是他传导出来的，那么他就可能被尊为一个邪教或者这个领袖，然后或者是认为是超级英雄，就是把那传导的人就是奉为宗教领袖了。
He was obviously, according to his DNA and his psychological makeup, and they know a lot of, as I was saying, they know a lot about us before we're born. According to his innate characteristics and his potential, they knew he must have been a very extraordinary person with amazing attributes or traits, because he was given one of the most highly experienced adjusters of his day and generation. So that means what, there's at that time there was 6 billion people in the world. So of 6 billion thought adjusters, he had one of the most experienced of that time on the world. That's what it says here.
对，那就是因为根据我们的心灵架构啊、DNA 啊来分配这个思想调整者，那么这个根据这个人的这种心理素质啊，然后是他给分配了一个特别优秀的、优异的那个在那个时代非常优异的这个思想调整者，那个时候人口大概有60亿。还是多少？对，就是他给分配的这调整者特别优秀的。
So they're saying that the first part of the paragraph, it says the adjuster of the human being through which this communication is being made, okay, the channeler enjoys such a wide scope of activity. You know, he's capable of doing so much more. You know, his adjuster can talk to him direct, you know, chiefly because this human, because he's almost completely indifferent to any outward manifestations of the adjuster's inner presence. So he's this unusual person where he can channel a book like this and not really be completely indifferent to it, not get all worked up about it, not even care one way or the other. Very unusual person.
对，就是他给他分配的思想调整非常的有经验的，但是这个人本身呢，他又对这些的这个思想调整者，他的思想调整能做的事情就缺乏这个主动的关心，没有什么，没啥兴趣。
They say it is indeed fortunate that he remains consciously quite unconcerned about the entire procedure. So they're saying it's so lucky that this guy did this and he's consciously unconcerned, because if he was concerned, then he would probably get in the way of it and start inserting his own ideas and thinking they were God's, or he'd run out and try to start a church, or he would write books about how he channeled God, you know. So they're saying it's fortunate that he was consciously unconcerned.
对，他主观意识上他不关心这些题材传导出来的内容，那么这个是一个这个地方说是非常幸运的一种情况。为什么呢？因为这样的话避免了他把自己的主观意识掺杂进这个传导的信息，然后他会发起热心组织自己的教会干啥的，这些的举动，这些的意向。那么实际上他根本就不关心，就是对自己传导内容并不感兴趣。
But I'm saying it's not really, it's not really fortunate. It's they chose him. They gave this, of all the people in the world, they gave this guy one of the most experienced adjusters that existed in the world at that time, because of this quality, because of how he was.
对，相当于这个人分配这样一个像调整者，这应该是就是有意识的，就是要达成这样的一种状况。
So he holds one of the most highly experienced adjusters of his day, and yet his passive reaction to his inactive concern, his lack of concern toward the phenomena associated with the presence of this person is pronounced by the guardian of destiny. So his guardian angel is saying, this is a very rare and fortuitous, you know, really beneficial reaction to what this guy is experiencing. I mean, he has this amazing thought adjuster who can do these amazing things in his mind, and he's just kind of not at all concerned about it. And his guardian angel is saying this is a very rare person who would have this kind of reaction to what's going on with him.
对，这是命运守护者，就是说他的护卫天使，就是说也表示就是说这样的一种状况哈，他对这种的思想调整者多才多艺的这种的表现，这种消极反应无动于衷，是一种罕见和偶然的反应。
But he's they're also saying that this is, very favorable situation for the adjuster, because he can do this such important work without the human being interfering or messing things up.
对，
And
其实
yeah,
这个就是避免了人类的参与啊、掺杂呀，对人类意识的参与掺杂，使这个信息就传导的比较纯净。
but it's not just beneficial and favorable for us, the readers, and for the adjuster who did it. It's also favorable to the channeler, because for his health, efficiency, and tranquility. Because what they're saying is, because of his indifference, because his ego didn't get involved, and his imagination didn't get involved, he was able to stay healthy, calm, even though he was the instrument of one of the most amazing events to happen on planet Earth. This is the 5th revelation on planet Earth, as far as we're concerned. But he was so indifferent to it that, that could, if he wasn't the kind of person he was, that could have affected his efficiency, his tranquility, and his health. He could have gotten all worked up about it, and it could have affected him in adverse ways. But because he was so indifferent, he didn't really care one way or the other, that was good for him. He just lived, aside from the fact that he was giving the world the 5th revelation, he just lived a normal, healthy life.
对，那么他就是这种状况是非常有利的。那么对思想调整者来说，因为那个没有小我呀、人类自我的这种参与，没有人类心识的想象力的混杂，那么它实际上带出来的是行星第5次的启示，但是呢，他因为对这些根本就不关心呢，他也没有给这个传道本身没有给他增加什么多余的工作，那么他还是过一个非常正常的、健康的、安宁的这种人类的生活。
So to wrap it up, no one has ever received except maybe Jesus, or who is a God himself, but no human being has ever received more important and direct communication from their adjuster than this guy. And he didn't get worked up about it at all. He didn't let it go to his head. He didn't even worry about it.
对，像他这样，他就分配这样一个多才多艺的思想调整，但是他根本跟他没有交集啊，跟他的工作没有交集，这个很奇怪，是吧？
I know, it's amazing.
It's so extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And I'm not sure, but I think he was some kind of scientist or scientific type of guy, which is one of the reasons he wasn't like a real spiritual voodoo type of person.
他不是一个，就是这个人在现实当中，他根本就不是一个对灵性有任何兴趣的。他可能 I thought he's a merchant, maybe a businessman. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'll try to look into it at some point, but I seem to recall that he was some kind of scientist, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, because I seem to recall he is a businessman. 这
Yeah.
个职业，对，他回去再那个，我记得他是一个商人，是一个这个传导者是一个商人，他只在睡眠的时候去 对，睡眠状态，但是睡醒之后他根本不知道自己是干啥的。对。
Whether he was a scientist or a businessman, I think he was a very practical, rational person who if he had been like an astrologer, or an artist or something, it might have been harder for him not to get all excited about what was going on. But because he had a very pragmatic, I think he had a very pragmatic personality, and he was like, okay, so this is happening, but meantime, I'm going to get on with my life.
对，他不管他是科学家还是商人，那么他实际上是一个非常的讲求实际的，那么理性头脑非常强的这么一个人。他不是那种星象学家呀或者艺术家呀，比较感性的，所以他实际上对这些灵性的东西完全不感兴趣，完全两个轨道。
Either that, or two other things might have happened. That's the impression I get, that he just, it says here like 3 different times, he just wasn't that concerned. But it's also possible that he thought about it, and he was a very smart guy, and he just decided not to be concerned because it would just screw him up too much, or he might interfere with it. It's possible. It's possible that he was so smart, he just said, you know what, I'm better off just leaving this thing alone, letting it do its thing, and keeping detached from it. That's a possibility.
对他，他可能就是，反正我不管怎么样，他是对这个传导的信息不感冒，他决定就是爱怎么样，反正就是，but he is passively cooperate, but of course he should not be actively resisting. In order to cooperate, he should not actively resist the passage.
Yeah, no, it does not say that he resisted in any way. It's just saying that he was indifferent. He didn't get involved with it. He was indifferent. He didn't care one way or the other.
对，他相当于他比较中性的，他是漠不关心，但是他也不反对，他也不反对，所以他实际上在一个非常那个的终点的，因为他特别热心是一种掺杂，那么特别反对，那么这个信息也传不过来，所以呢，他是在一个漠不关心、爱咋地这样的一种状态，那么实际上这是最好的一种配合，最完美的一种配合。
But no one except him knows all that happened. So it's possible. We don't know. We'll never know. But we might know when we get to the Miranda worlds, but we'll never know here. It's possible that they also told him in the beginning, you're going to be used. You have the right characteristics. We're going to use you for this. Don't get involved. Go about your life. Don't worry about it. Don't think you're some kind of guru. That'll just be bad for your health. It will, just stay detached from it. It's very possible that they gave him that guidance. We don't know.
那也还有可能就是相当于他接受了一种内在的一种指引，或者是我认为就像一种暗示或者催眠一样，就是告诉他你不要一直想着要做什么精神导师啊，你就是安安稳稳就配合我们的工作，把这个东西传导出来就好了。这个你还会就是你就做你平常人的过你平常人的生活，你愿意怎么样就怎么样。很可能收到这样的一种暗示。
Whether it was his natural inclination, which that's what they seem to be saying, or whether he made a decision, or whether he received guidance, or whether it was some combination of those things.
他说
he
或者是不管
Yeah.
是由于他自然的倾向啊，还是他自己做的一个主观的决定啊，不去关心呐、还是他得到一种内在的这种指引，不去关心呐、或者是就是结合这几种原因的结合。
he was able, either he did it naturally or he was able to remain completely detached from it, not let his ego get involved with it, and that's why it worked out so well for all of us.
对，那么不管是怎么样，主观的、客观的，那么实际上效果就是他相当于保持跟这个信息的一种解离状态，没有小我的参与。
Most people, if this happened to them, they wouldn't be picked they wouldn't be picked for the job because of it. But if it happened to most people, they would say, I am special. I'm giving the world a revelation. They chose me. I'm the guru. I'm the guru of the world. Listen to me. I know everything.
对，他说，当然，大部分人不会去被选择这样执行这样一个任务，但是一旦他们被这样拣选出来做这个任务，他们可能就很容易就变得非常骄傲自大，说啊，我非常特别，哎，上天选择了我，我就是那个精神导师，就是传达上天旨意的啊，人就容易有这样的一种表现。Yeah. Of course, why me? Of course,
Why me? I must be the most special person in the world.
对，我是世界上最特别的人，因为上天拣选了我。Yes, we wanted to be special. Yeah.
And then it wouldn't even be the Urantia book. It would be John. I would be Jimmy's book of Jimmy, book of Philip.
对，有可能我给他起名叫约翰的书、吉米的书、菲利普的书也是通过这些的人物传导的，就是人就愿意突出自己的一个重要嘛，自己的作用，自己的改变世界的伟大力量，对。
So they're telling us about him right here because they just finished telling us over and over again how dangerous it is to let this stuff, to get too involved in what the adjuster is doing in our mind. We should all stay detached from it, not get too involved. I mean, we can communicate. If we communicate, great, that's fine. But just be very careful we don't get our egos involved in this stuff.
对，这一段出现在这儿，实际上就是强调，就是我们人的心识哈，不要去跟那个神的信息混杂，那混杂的这个危险性啊，强调这个。
I think one
选一个安全的人去这里。
选了一个比较最不容易混杂的，泾渭分明哈，泾是泾，渭是渭，是吧？泾水渭水。完全不去混杂的，就是这样一种人格的，他这种人格素质，实际上就是对吧？这个河道最不容易，这个把那个淤泥这水流经过的时候刮下一些淤泥，然后就不清了嘛。因为他这样泾渭分明的，就完全不 care 的但是呢又不抵抗的，然后呢就是最好的一个管道，最干净的一个管道。
是不是也说明他就是他的这个因为他是说在梦境里面，是不是也说明他的本身精神压力啊，各种的情绪也比较的平静，就是人比较平静，
平稳，
就不会扭曲，对，信息管道很通畅。
是的，没有纠结啊，就是他在人生实际的生活当中，有可能是比较心理比较那个。
Can you translate some of?
Yeah, we are talking about why he is chosen, because he might, Shirley said, he might be very stable and that do not have so much struggle, psychic struggling. So that's why in his dream, he may not
Yes, yes, yes.
contaminate the God's message with his own, psychic struggling. Or
Exactly. That's a good point. That was
Oh.
probably, I think he was a very extraordinary person in many ways, but that's probably one of his main features that they were looking for. I would guess. I think she's right.
对，他说神力这一点也是非常重要的、非常好的点。对，那么这个人可能心理素质是比较稳定，比较没有那么多的纠结。对，所以他在梦境当中不会把那些东西来掺杂进他的信息，保证了信息的纯净。
And he's probably a very balanced person.
对，是一个非常平衡的，各方面非常平衡的这么一个人格。
A lot of people, they're imbalanced, so they're too spiritual and they're not practical enough, or they're too practical and they're not spiritual enough. A lot of our problem is this lack of balance.
对，有的人可能太属灵了，不着调，不着地儿，就是那种的，忽悠的。对，有的就是but I think he's too material oriented. Yeah.
No, he isn't. Look, I don't think you could say he's too, because he gave us the fifth revelation on the planet, so he must be doing something right,
Yeah, very mysterious,
Yeah, I think he had to be a little bit on the not material, just not that concerned with spiritual things. That doesn't mean he worshipped money or material things. He may have cared very much about being a good person.
这个人，我就说，这人是不是？那他不属灵，不属灵，是不是非常的物质主义？他说也不是。
理解他是一个很淡定的人，他并不是真正的默观，就是很淡定，因为他被分配了一个很经验丰富的调整者，说明他灵性是很高的。
What?
Yeah, what Shenli gets is that he may not, intentionally spiritual, but he is already very spiritually advanced. That's why he becomes less concerned about those spiritual things, because he might, yeah,
Yeah, that's true. But that the other thing is,
that's why he can be balanced, because if we see someone is balanced, that means he has been through both extremes, and then finally he can come back to the zero, to the point.
Yeah, or maybe he never even had to go through those extremes.
Yeah.
I want you to translate everything.
对，我就是那个。那有可能一个很属灵的人，他可能并不一定说表现多么属灵，就是可能他已经达到了那种灵性和物质就是说一种很平衡的状态，很成熟很稳定的一种状态。他不一定说不属灵并不等于他就很物质啊，这是我们刚才讨论的那点，大概就是这个意思。
But also, Ricky, there are these people, many people in the world who totally believe in God. They're very spiritual people. They totally believe in Jesus. They want to do good. But they're not the least bit interested in the Urantia book or in things like this. They have no interest. They could care less. He might have been one of those people.
No, but I remember you mentioned that you have a friend who have a very loving heart, but she's not religious at all. Remember?
Oh yeah, I have a few friends like that.
Yeah, so they don't need to be demonstrating spiritual interest, but actually they are spiritual.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, yes, he could be one of those, or and translate after I say this because I want everyone to hear, but he could be one of those who is doing God's will, just they're just not thinking of it as God's will. They just think they're doing the right thing to do, you know, very moral, ethical person. He could be one of those, or he could be one like I'm talking about. I have another best friend who totally believes in God, totally believes in Jesus, very strong believer, but doesn't have any interest in the Urantia book or these kinds of things, not at all.
这个表现都不一样。有的人其实他遵从神的旨意，他是很有道德的人，但是他不一定就是说，主观上他认为他是信神的。那有的，他也有朋友，是信耶稣啊，信神，非常的虔诚，但是呢，就对预言下之书没有任何的兴趣。所以就是不一定主观上，人不一定主观上认为他在行神的旨意，但是他有可能已经在神的旨意上面，这个是。
He was probably one of those two types, probably.
还有可能是这里边的，对，就这个传道者有可能是在这里边的一个类型。
You know, I always say to you guys, this book doesn't appeal to that many people.
他说我一直跟你们说，这本书这并不是对每个人都有吸引力的，就并不是每个人都会对它感兴趣的。
I think someday it will, but not in our time, not in our time.
尤其在现在的这个时代，真的也没有多少人对这本书感兴趣。Yeah, that's true, but it's kind of very intriguing, you know, all this, especially, you know, in this section, you know, about the differentiating the message from thought adjuster and the guidance from the conscience. I think that's a very important teaching, because most of the time, even in Christianity, you know, people mixed those,
Yes.
you know, they said, you know, the God's guidance, including, you know, the God feeling, also including the conscience, the reminding from the conscience. So they literally mixed up whatever God's guidance with the conscience. You know, this is very much, you know, different from whatever teaching we delivered here.
Yes.
那我还就说到这一节，就是说提到就是说思想调整者的引导跟那个良心的提醒，这是两码事儿，这个是非常重要的。因为在基督教里边，我原来在基督教里边的体验，他们就把这个神的指导跟良心的谴责就相当于是混在一块的。良心的提醒，他认为就是神的指导，这个他们是非常的混淆的，放在一块的。Yeah,
I agree, and I just want to say for people listening to the recording that we're done with we're going to talk a little bit more, but we're done with the reading today.
对，他说这个今天我们大概就读到这儿。Yeah.
I agree with you, Ricky, that it's so important, because I mean, the things that this book tells us, no other book in the world tells you these things. You're not going to get this anywhere else, that you explain the difference between your conscience and the guidance of your thought adjuster. These things are so, like you said, they're really important to understand, because you can get mixed up. You can get very confused otherwise.
对，他说这本书的确他 非常特别，他提到这些的区别，因为是非常非常重要的区分这些概念。
A conscience, like I said, the Amish might have a conscience. You might have a bad conscience if they talk on a cell phone, but someone else, it can be a cultural thing, like Chinese people might feel bad doing something that a New Yorker doesn't feel bad at all doing.
对，那么就是这个非常重要的，因为那个良心，它就是跟你的文化背景就是特别的相关了，你在哪里成长的特别的相关，对啊，那就是相当于我们用我们的话讲，相当于用我的话讲，就是限制性信念。很多情况下，我们受良心谴责，实际上受我们限制性信念的谴责，对，并不一定是来自神对你的一种指导。
Your conscience. I learned this from the Urantia book, but your conscience is very much a product. I mean, sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's giving you very good guidance because it's telling you, you shouldn't steal and you shouldn't kill and you shouldn't say mean things about people. These are all good things but your conscience will also tell you things that you learn from your family or from your culture or from your religion that may or may not, as far as God is concerned, they may be important, they may be completely irrelevant.
对，那就是良心往往是这什么的产物呢？家庭成长背景啊，文化呀，文化影响啊，宗教影响这些的产物啊。当然，你就是说啊，教导你良心教导你不要去偷窃，不要杀人啊，这个是好的。但是由于你受这些的其他的这种环境的影响，那个形成你的良心的很大的一部分，那么就不见得这个从他来的影响就是好的。
Like a lot of people think it's very bad to curse, to say bad words. But in New York, where I'm from, everyone curses. It's not so bad.
那比如说诅咒，那有可能就是其他的文化觉得不好的，但是在纽约诅咒没有什么不对的。Very open.
It's just the way we talk in New York. We all curse all the time.
对，我们就说话当中总是充满了诅咒，充满了对，想说啥就说啥，没有那么多禁忌。对。
When I left New York, I moved to all these other, to Atlanta and Virginia and Maryland and Washington, and I had some habits that were very, very, that would upset people, like cursing or interrupting people all the time, or things that are fine in New York. We all do it. But when I got to other places, they didn't like it at all. They'd get very offended.
他说那从纽约出来之后，我就去过亚特兰大呀，去过弗吉尼亚、马里兰呐，在华盛顿特区啊。那我经常就是人家讲话，我打断人家，那人家都是觉得很受冒犯。但是在纽约，就是我们说话的方式啊，我们就是随时打断和被打断，我们也不觉得有啥不对。
A lot of things that Donald Trump, the ex-president, does are typical things for a New Yorker to do, but they're very offensive to people in other parts of the country.
前总统那个川普总统，他很多的说话的方式，那么其实对纽约人来说是很自然的，但是对其他的地方的人却觉得很受冒犯。
But a lot of people in other parts of the country appreciate it if they appreciate that New York type of personality. They appreciate it, but but other people get offended by it.
当然也有一些其他地方的人也是很欣赏纽约人的这种行为说话方式的。
but he has a very New York type of personality.
他就是川普是非常多的这纽约那种地方特色的这种方式交流方式。
I have a friend from India, and a virtual friend, right? And at one point he said, "Are you from New York?" And I said, "Yeah, how did you know?" He said, "'Cause you act like Donald Trump."
他对网上一个朋友，印度的朋友，就问说：“哎，你是不是从纽约来的？”我说：“是啊。”他说：“哦，那是因为你就有点做派，有点像那个川普总统。” That's flattering. You are flattered. You're like Donald Trump. 对
I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
But he was right. It was. I do act like a New Yorker. I am my personality is very much formed by spending my whole life in New York.
对，他说实际上，对，我是在纽约待了大部分时间，是深受纽约的文化的影响的。
And so is Shun